How's it going, everyone? This is Kevin. Today I want to bring along with me to talk about if the Tamron 35-150 for Sony has a weight issue. So let's jump right into it. Probably one of my most frequent questions when it comes down to this lens, not really about performance. It is about, is it too heavy to lug around everywhere? So today I wanted to dive further into the depth of how much the size and weight of this lens really affects your content creation. Is it something that you're gonna really like, or is it something that you're just, you know what, it's too much for me to handle, I don't want something this heavy, or if it's too much of a burden to bring around with you. So firstly, yes, this is a chunky boy of a lens, and it is, you know, length and weight size, very chunky. But personally, I haven't felt like it was such a burden to have just this lens around with me, even after lugging it around, basically walking, taking photos downtown or on our trips. So I'm gonna kind of tell you a little bit of the, I guess, the pros and cons when it comes down to this lens. I do find that the weight of this is heavier than obviously my other lenses that I have, whether it's a 70-180 and my 28-75 and obviously my 17-28. But the good thing about this lens is that I have to just bring one lens only, and it's not really going to be such a burden to me overall compared to when I would have to bring so much more gear before with all my prime lenses, zoom lenses, and everything just to kind of clog up my camera bag. I've brought this lens around with me to all my trips and all my photo shoots ever since getting it, and like I said, I've gotten rid of my prime lenses like in the videos that I've made before, mainly because it just covers all my focal range that I need, and for the weight of it, it's kind of like a good pro to have where you can just have something that covers a whole focal range that you need anyway and not have to be changing around with other lenses. And for me personally, it hasn't really bothered me the weight and size of this lens. Yes, it is heavier, but for me, for what I'm doing, it hasn't been heavy enough that I would have my arm like get too tired, and I didn't want to have this lens on anymore, and I wanted to change anything when I'm out shooting. So that's, I guess, a thing to take into consideration. But just basically condensing down to this lens and this lens over here has helped me shrink down the size of my camera bag with how much I put into it. And honestly, I kind of just love how much condensed down it is now that I can feel like I can bring anything and everything without feeling like I'm putting too much stress into my back with all the stuff that I would put in my camera gear like before, carrying all those prime lenses and everything. If I wanted to bring a drone, if I wanted to bring a film camera, it just kind of got a little bit too heavy. So that's something that I personally believe that despite of this one lens being a little bit heavier than most, it still made me shed down a couple pounds in the marketing of my, you know, my bag, and now it's a lighter bag. Because most of the time, if I'm really just gonna take photos, I only bring this lens and then my Sony a7 IV that's somewhere back over there, and I can just condense it down and put it in my camera bag, and sometimes it feels like I have nothing in my camera bag just because I was so used to putting so much gear in my camera bag that it was just kind of sometimes like feel like a chore to want to go out create, because it just felt like I was getting backaches and everything. So that has helped me out to just create more, to be honest. I've made videos about it, walking around downtown, doing the POV style photo shoots with this lens only. I've brought it to my getaway kind of trip that I did. And ever since then, I've been using this lens only. And I've been like walking around for hours at a time whenever I create content, just with this lens and my camera setup. And it just doesn't get tiring for me, honestly. Now, I won't lie to you, it is a massive lens compared to most, and it is pretty heavy in the sense of that aspect, but it's not too heavy. It might take some getting used to at first, because you're gonna notice that it is considerably heavier than your other lenses when it comes down to the first kind of like grasp, because you know when you like envision something and you think you know how like heavy or something will be, but then you're like, oh, this kind of like blew my expectations just a little bit more. That's kind of what it was at first, but then you quickly get used to it, just like what you'll do with anything. Like if you're upgrading from an APS-C sensor to full frame, you're gonna feel like it's a massive camera and so heavy, but then time goes by and you don't even notice that you were complaining about that, and you're like, why did I complain about that? That's exactly what this is. Plus, there's an added bonus into this lens. Tamron didn't really market it, which is kind of wild to me, but it has its own security system, because with how big this is, if somebody tries to steal it from you, kabam, right in their face, and you're good to go. You might lose the lens, but you won't lose everything. But I'm kidding. But seriously though, I mean, it is a little intimidating for some people. They're like, whoa, that's a big setup. But it's good because honestly, I haven't had people like talk to me with camera gear and stuff like that when I'm downtown, because sometimes people are like, oh, you're a photographer, and it kind of can be a little bit sketchy. But with this one, I feel like people just left me alone when I was walking downtown, so it worked out. But in all seriousness, I don't believe the weight is such a big issue compared to what you can get with other like bigger zoom lenses. So like the 70-200 by Sony, it's a massive lens, to be honest. Even with the condensed down kind of version I think that they came out with, can't remember if it's Sony or Canon that did that, they're still pretty big lenses, and this one goes to 150. So I mean, pros and cons, like I said. I mean, do you want more focal range for this kind of weight, or do you want to go with a 70-200? You know, it's still a big lens, so it's up to you, I guess. And at a f2 to f2.8 zoom lens, you really are getting quite a big bargain for what you're getting in a focal range with this, for the weight issue, if you will, because you're covering from 35 to 150, which is most people's sweet spot is a 35, and you can get those primes for 1.4, but I did a test and I couldn't really tell that massive of a difference from the 1.4 to the f2. So that's why I, condensed down to this, and the weight issue hasn't really been an issue for me. And I honestly see a lot of people always want this lens. I've noticed it with my videos that I've done about this, how they perform, and people asking me questions on social media about this lens. So don't be scared about the weight and size of it. It's not really that intimidating in my honest opinion. I think you'll get used to it faster than you realize, and it won't be that big of an issue if you're fine kind of giving it a chance when it comes down to the weight, because I know some people were going to use it for 1 week and go, oh no, this might be too heavy for me, because they're not used to it. But just give it a chance, and you never know. And yes, it's not going to be as light as your 28-75 or 24-70 or 70-180, the Tamron even, but it will help you stay in shape when you're out shooting. So it's like a double whammy. You're going to the gym and creating content. Who could ask for a better combo right there? But that's pretty much my opinion when it comes down to the weight of this lens. I personally don't find it a big issue. It is a little bit of a chunky boy, but it's not too much of a chunky boy to make me not want to keep only this lens or get it. So hopefully this will help you out to decide if you should get this lens as well. And if you have any questions regarding the weight or anything like that else that I didn't really cover here, please let me know down below. I would love to explain anything that you would have questions for and see if it'll help you out in your decision to get this lens or not. But with all that said and done, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe, share this video with a friend, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.